I took revenge on my cheating wife. My revenge began with discovering my wife's infidelity. Let's call her Carrie. After 14 years of marriage and 3 kids, I saw a text appear on her work phone for just a few seconds that would forever change my life. It was a message that was graphic and had no business being on anyone's work phone. It was on the lock screen and the sender's name was visible. Let's call him Perry. Background: I married Carrie when I was 25 and she was 22. I was teaching high school at the time and she was a RN. After having our first child, Carrie became a stay-at-home mom. Money was tight, so I took on an admin role in my department and coached 2 sports for the stipends. We made it, and after a few annual pay raises, I stopped coaching and took advantage of a program to earn an administrative credential. Once I made the jump to administration, our last child was ready for preschool and Carrie decided she wanted to go back to work. Nursing jobs are always available, but they're not always the best positions. Carrie pretty much had to start back at the bottom, working alongside nurses that were a lot younger than she was and could work back-to-back double shifts that took a toll on Carrie. When she asked her supervisor about other positions, she was told that without a BSN, she wasn't going to move up. At the time, Carrie had only the 2-year ADN. I told her that between preschool, after-school rec, and my retired mother, who was always willing to pick up the kids from school and watch them, I'd support her getting her BSN. It took her 3 years, but eventually she had her BSN and was promoted to a better position at the hospital. Things were good for a while. We had plenty of money, so finally moved into our own McMansion, bought new cars, etc. I'd moved from school admin to the district admin, so I had more time to spend with Carrie and the kids. She was working a more predictable schedule, and even with my often long hours at work, this change allowed us to finally take vacations to all the places we'd put on a list during our honeymoon. She kept that list in our wedding album. At some point years later, I noticed she's carrying 2 phones with her. When I asked her about it, she said that it was a phone provided by the hospital. I didn't question her explanation because my district had also given me the option of a phone or a phone stipend, which I took instead. Again, months went by and I thought we were a happy, perfect family. I charged my phone in our den while she charged her phone in our guest bedroom that doubled as a computer room so we could keep tabs on the kids while they surfed the web. I was updating software on the computer when I saw a light around her work phone. She had a habit of always turning her phones face down when charging them. Out of curiosity, I reached over to the phone and flipped it over. A message had popped up on the lock screen asking her when she'd like to be orally pleased again, but in much more graphic language. I also saw that Perry sent it. The world stopped around me. I just froze. My first thoughts were, what the hell was that about? It's her work phone. That kind of message gets people fired. Then it hit me. Was Carrie having an affair? It's amazing how the brain works. I suddenly started remembering a lot of things Carrie had done that seemed odd, but I'd either dismissed them myself or immediately accepted her explanation. She was always walking out of the room to answer a call or return a text and claimed that it would violate HIPAA if I overheard her talking about a patient. I accepted this because education has similar privacy laws regarding students. She would sometimes come home with the faint smell of cologne on her clothes and claimed it was from helping to move male patients. Again, I accepted this at face value, but it always struck me as odd how it seemed to have the same scent of cologne. Once the proverbial barn door was open, I started seeing a lot of things that I'd missed before. Our love life in the bedroom had cooled off considerably, which wasn't helped by her having to leave the house at odd hours to fill in for other nurses that called in sick. I also recalled where I'd seen the name Perry before, and a call to the hospital confirmed he was a doctor there. For the next week or so, I was walking around in daze trying to put all of the pieces together. One of our kids had left a book in Carrie's car, so it was an excuse to visit the hospital. Carrie had told me personal visits were frowned upon. My kid went up to get Carrie's car key. I'd forgotten my key to her car at home. I talked to a nurse in the lobby and joked about how work phones seem like a blessing, but all they do is put you on call 24 hours a day. This led to her eventually telling me that the hospital was too cheap to give cell phones to nurses, so only high-level executives got them, which didn't include Carrie. With pretty much everything confirmed, I took some personal time off the next day to talk to a divorce lawyer. The news she gave me was horrible. We lived in a community property state with no-fault divorce. I made more money than Carrie, she'd been the primary caretaker of the kids, and we'd been married for more than 10 years. Basically, if I filed for divorce, I'd be screwed. Lose the house, pay alimony, she'd get a huge chunk of my retirement, and I'd pay child support for the next decade unless I was lucky enough to be awarded joint custody. The worst thing she told me was that it didn't matter that she cheated. It didn't matter. I was crushed. There was only one person I could trust with this kind of information. She was a fellow teacher that had also made the jump to administration, but was stuck at a school site. Let's call her Anne, and had been married at 19, but her marriage was annulled when he got some other woman pregnant. Since then, she'd focused on her career, and we'd found we were kindred spirits in a lot of ways regarding K-12 education. I talked to Anne. She said something to me that changed my whole mindset. If you don't like the hand you're dealt, change the deck. I realized I had 2 problems. I made more money than Carrie and she had more time than me to be the primary caretaker of the kids. The second issue was actually kind of easy. At every district office, there are jobs that are fast tracks to higher positions, and there are jobs that administrators suffer through, like mess or KP duty in the military. One of these dead-end regulatory positions was open again. Ambitious administrators leave after a couple of years when a better position opens up. I sat down with our district superintendent and asked about being transferred to that position. At first he was shocked, but I told him that it was my time to take one for the team and it would fill a hole in my admin experience. He agreed. It was really just crunching numbers with no personal or student interaction so I could set my schedule, even take a laptop home and work there. With my new free time, I began taking the kids to school, picking them up from school, not leaving them in after school rec or having my mother watch them, and taking them home. I'd help them with their homework, make dinner, etc. while the end goal was to become their primary caretaker. I can't explain how much I really enjoyed taking a more active role in their day-to-day lives. My salary hadn't been reduced, so I needed to find a way for Carrie to make a lot more money than she was in current nursing position. I remembered Carrie being mad after she'd earned her BSN and a supervisor told her in the future, bachelor degrees will be worthless and everyone will need at least a master's degree. Carrie had worked hard to get her BSN and that supervisor's comment pissed all over her hard work. I talked her into starting an MSN program. I told her that since I had a much more flexible work schedule, I would keep taking care of the kids. She was reluctant at first, then I said, you could have every evening free to study or go to class, whatever you want to do. I saw her eyes immediately light up, probably thinking that she could spend more time with Perry. To make sure she was actually completing her MSN courses, I paid her tuition and fees directly to her university. It was going to take her between 2 and 3 years to finish. Those years were rough at times. I could tell every time she was rushing off or coming back from seeing Perry. There was an excitement or sense of satisfaction in her eyes that just wasn't there when she was doing her coursework. I had to either smile or pretend I didn't notice. My temper got short at times and I found myself in arguments over petty nonsense. A couple of times I almost blew the whole charade, having to bite my tongue and apologize rather than scream insults at her that she deserved. Anne remained my confidant through all of this. I'd recommended her for my previous fast-track position and she joined me at the district office. Anne was qualified, hard-working, ambitious and only needed her foot in the door to impress the higher-ups. I even got a few pats on the back for recommending her after she impressed everyone. Anne and I started our own affair. It wasn't some hot-blooded, passionate romance, but two friends giving each other what they need. Without Anne, I wouldn't have been able to maintain the charade of being an oblivious idiot. But when Carrie would come home smiling after spending time with Perry, I was able to bear it, smiling back because I had my own lover. After 3.5 years, Carrie completed her MSN and was promoted at her hospital. Her salary went up substantially and was now higher than mine. When the kids and I made her a congratulations dinner, I made a joke about her being the breadwinner for the family and she laughed, joking back I should be a stay-at-home dad now. A month later, I went back to the lawyer, who didn't remember me at first, and told her the financial situation had drastically changed. With these new facts, she drafted the petition and filed it. When the kids were with my mother, I had Carrie served. The deputy knocked on our front door and I let him in, pointing at my wife. He asked her name and then handed her a copy of the divorce petition. With the deputy standing there, I told Carrie I knew all about her affair with Perry, but I didn't tell her how long I'd known. I told her to go be happy with her doctor lover. She screamed at me, tried to lie, and then made the mistake of rushing toward me. The deputy stopped her and warned her that women go to jail for domestic violence, too. Now, he suggested she pack a bag to stay somewhere else. Carrie left after I promised not to tell the kids about her affair. I didn't tell the kids, but I told my mother, who told my sister, who told her kids, who told their cousins, my kids. It took a few days, but eventually the kids knew that dad was divorcing mom because she had a boyfriend. In the end, the court granted the divorce, giving me primary custody of our kids. Because I was already their primary caretaker, I kept the house with the promise I'd refinance to buy out Carrie's half. She was ordered to pay child support, and I used that fact to negotiate with her to give up any rights to my retirement if I bought her out. I was able to refinance my home. It was the era when banks threw money at everyone to buy or refinance a mortgage, and with a little money borrowed from my parents, I bought our Carrie's community property interest in the home and in my retirement. The day she signed all the paperwork with my lawyer finally ending any possible financial obligations to her was the happiest I'd been. I felt like I could finally breathe. I celebrated with Anne, who'd been my rock through all of it. I'm not ashamed to say that through the years I'd cried many times in her arms. Anne and I would eventually marry. She got promoted to a higher position and I was convinced to take back my previous position at the district when my youngest child reached high school. Carrie and I got along well after the divorce. We took the kids to family therapy and worked out this co-parenting thing. For the few months, she took a beating from the kids about why she needed a boyfriend when daddy was there all along. Between the kids and the therapist raking her over the coals, I didn't have to say anything at all. Carrie missed a lot of time with the kids because of her now legitimately busy work schedule, and I actually felt bad that my kids were missing time with their mother, so encouraged them to talk to her on the phone instead. When Carrie found out that I'd proposed to Anne, she congratulated me. I told her it's okay for her to marry Perry, too. She got sad. She told me that Perry had started seeing another woman, a younger nurse at the hospital, because with her new position, she didn't have time for him, and when they did get together, she wasn't fun anymore. My ex-wife, the woman who'd cheated on me and destroyed our marriage, was looking to me for sympathy. I had none to give. What I had was years of anger and frustration. Years of knowing some other man was sleeping with my wife. I'd lost weight from not being able to eat. I'd suffered hypertension and had to confide in my doctor why it wasn't the stress of my job. I had to listen to my dentist complain about how I was grinding and listening to him tell me I'd need dental implants if it kept up. There were times when I had to be intimate with Carrie to keep up the charade, fortunately infrequently, only to lie that I wanted to use a rubber to remind us how we used to have intimacy when we were dating, or because I might have a bladder infection, then go take a test anyway and wait for the results before seeing it again. But in the end, it was all worth it. My girlfriend asked that we open the relationship, and I just pointed her to the door. I firmly believe that in a monogamous relationship, when someone asks to open it, well, is because that person saw something else out there and is ready to try it instead of working in the relationship, blindsiding their partner. So I have been with Fran, 36, over the last 2.5 years, almost 2 as a couple. I thought things were moving smoothly and was about to ask her to move in, at the beginning of April, but lately, she was acting somewhat distant. So I decided to wait a little and watch. I was cheated on in the past, so I'm a little cautious with some signs. Out of nowhere, this last Friday, she asked me to open the relationship, and she gave me her big speech. When she ended her presentation, I asked her if she had someone in mind because it's not like what we decided today and going out with other people tomorrow. I tricked her into telling me what I already knew, and yes, she had someone in mind, which means that either she already did it or she had all set up. So I got up and walked around the apartment while she was trying to sell that this could be good for us in our relationship. By the time she ended talking, I handed her one of my sports with all her stuff. I told her to leave the spare key on the table on her way out, that we were done, and she knew why. Then I went to the couch and turned on the TV, just trying to look indifferent and save face. She was speechless for a while, about to cry, but before she couldn't say something, I told her that I didn't want to talk about anything and she should leave. As soon as she left, I felt like crap, so unworthy, I cried a little, and I'm still mourning. My phone has gone almost nuclear with all the calls and texts I received from friends of both sides about my extreme reaction to her simple request. I don't know what she told them. So now I'm sitting wondering if I went overboard and simultaneously fought the urge to run back to her because deep inside, even knowing my feelings for her are still there, the trust is gone. I'm not going to spend all my time watching her movements. It is not healthy, maybe in time, I don't know. Before anyone pointed out, yes, I know, my reaction is a pure reflection of me, not what she did or was about to do or could do. So, did I go overboard? Update, some people pointed out that maybe I went overboard, and she wasn't aware of my position. I replied to some, but there were too many comments to get back to all. So to clarify, maybe a year back, we had a couple of friends in a similar situation, and that was the central theme of conversation in our group of friends for about a month. Whenever I say that, I am a big no, and if one person in a relationship needs to be with another, they should leave. About the friends trying to mend things up, well, they weren't aware of the situation yesterday after I posted here, and, with my ideas more defined, I went to see a group of them and told them my point. All of them agreed with me on a different level, some wanted to let it go, others tried to burn her at the stake. Of course, a few girls in the group pointed out that I could do things better. Also, there were a few questions about if we could consider giving her another chance. But for me the main issue is not feelings. I know that I love her, but the trust is gone, and I don't want to find myself wondering all the time what is she up to. After I left, my friends talked to other people who weren't there, and the waters were calm. If you are wondering what she is doing, I don't know. I got a few texts from her but have yet to read them, and I don't think I will do it soon. Update, my girlfriend asked that we open the relationship, and I just pointed her to the door. Finally, after listening to various friends and credit users, I talked to her to sort things out. Last Friday, we met at our regular place where we take coffee. At a distance, she looked great, so great that I just wanted to say F it and drag her back to my place. It took a lot of restraining not to do it. When I got close to her, I noticed her sadness, and she still has her eyes irritated from crying. We sat, and before she could say a word, I asked her to tell me the entire story and that please don't let anything out of it, that I needed it, and then I would ask her a few things and also required all the truth. The story is basic. Around 2 months before she asked for an open relationship, they met this exotic good-looking guy on her girls' dancing night out. During the first month, he was the new flavor that all the singles friends in the group were trying out, which led to the girls taking and sharing experiences. Eventually, this guy, having his way with all the girls around him, set his eyes on Fran and began to flirt with her, taking her to the dance floor and having fun. Well, here is when she should stop things because we agreed with a dancing night that she would stay away from any guy because we are pigs, and a guy rarely wants to dance. Because of the excitement, she went for it, enjoyed this guy's attention, and had a great time dancing. Looking at the timeline, this was when I noticed that Fran was distant. Moving forward a few weeks, her friends shared more intimate stories about this guy, which got into her mind. She found herself fantasizing about doing it with him. Also, he was trying to make a move on her too. But from what she told me, she didn't go for it because she was with me. Drinks and Dr. 𝑻𝒊𝒏𝒆 friends are evil counselors, and once the idea of opening the relationship came out, they were over 2 weeks chatting about how to convince me that because a long time ago, I had threesomes and also swung a little, I should be okay with the idea of open the relationship. But threesomes and swinging are things you do as a couple and out of pure excitement. At least for me, and it was a long time ago, early 20s, all this led to the day she asked to open the relationship. She told me that she and her friends never thought I would end the connection at that moment, that the worst scenario would be me getting angry and saying no. So there is no big deal in just asking. At this point, I interrupted her and told her she should know better. We had been together for over 2 years, and I always shared my thoughts about everything with her. She agrees. At this point, I explained to her that I didn't break up with her for the question. I did it because there was already a guy, so that was a major trust issue for me. If this concern came out naturally, we could have to work it out. In the worst scenario, we may have found an alternative, but the way things were, it was an alert for me. We went around the topic for a while, and then I began questioning her. I asked if she was intimate with him at some point, and she said she wasn't. If she developed some feelings for him, no, she didn't, and, lastly, if she has seen this guy again, that was also a no. Even if that is not much, that was a slight relief. But I explained that I couldn't return to her, I needed to close this for my health. Also, I told her that we share a lot of friends and I want to keep all of them because of this, and it wouldn't be fair to ask them to choose, so we can behave like adults and keep things friendly. If my friends take one side is because they want it, not because I asked them to. She said she was sorry and would undo everything if she could, but she knew it couldn't be done. She was about to cry, I was too. So it was an excellent moment to ask for the check and leave. I walked her to her car, opened the door for her, just an habit of mine, and she started to cry. I couldn't help and hug her, and we stood there for about 10 minutes, and when she calmed, she got into her car and drove. I was shocked, went home, grabbed my camping gear, drove to the Mount, and spent all the weekend there to clear my mind. Early this morning, I was driving back to the city. When my phone grabbed a signal, it got flooded with messages from friends and family, all worried because I had disappeared without telling anybody. I texted back to everyone, telling them I was okay, that I went camping and was driving to work. Also, I got a text from her, something along the lines that she feels that we are not over yet and that she thinks I need time to leave all this behind me, and she will wait in the hope of it. I haven't texted her back because I'm done, but experience has taught me never to say never. So, for now, I will take it easy, do what I like, and see where things take me.